Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 34. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, as we get ready for Week 5, some primetime football under the lights at Acrisure Stadium. Sunday night, can see Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers, a classic rivalry matchup renewed in a game that'll be important for both sides. Got a great show today. Go over injury situation, coordinator talk, little Devante Adams update, and got a great guest on for the Cowboys a little bit later. Dave, how you doing?
Happy Friday, Steelers, Cowboys, Sunday night. First time these two teams have squared off in a Sunday night matchup. So I imagine the ratings will be very, very good with these two fan bases and all. And usually anytime the Steelers are on prime time, it does well. But I imagine with the Cowboys being the opponent this week and the large fan base they have, the ratings will be off the hook, as they say there. So happy Friday. I'm ready to get after this. It was fun to do the study on this one ahead of this on the All 22. So we should have some pretty good breakdowns, and we got a great guest as well.
Yeah, that is Joseph Hoyt. We'll talk to him. He covers the Cowboys for DLLS Sports and alldlls.com. The ratings should do well, and Dave, the Steelers usually do well in primetime situations, so we'll make our picks for the game a little bit later on. But before that, some housekeeping. The Thursday injury report. Again, record these shows on Friday before the final one comes out. That'll be key. Looking good, though, for Isaac Seumalo. He's practicing full on Wednesday and Thursday. I presume that'll carry over into Friday. He should be good to go and start at left guard, make his 2024 debut. Jeremiah Moon, even though that they're still technically on IR, he is listed on the injury report. He's been full all week with the ankle injury he suffered in the summer, so a good chance he'll get activated on Saturday, it seems. Nick Herbig, limited on Thursday, but that was progress after not practicing on Wednesday. He should be good. It seems, from a report standpoint, status quo with Russell Wilson with the calf injury. He did tell reporters he's done a bit more. He's gotten some work in 11-on-11 situations. We can talk about him more in a minute. I do want to watch for Larry Ogunjobi. He was limited with a groin injury, and I know Ray Fittipaldo on the fan said he left mid-practice. So it wasn't like one of those, he came in with the injury and they managed his reps. He got hurt during practice, it appears. So I want to see what his Friday status is. Bunch of guys not practicing from a health standpoint. The names to mention are Jalen Warren with the knee, Michael Pruitt with the knee, Alex Highsmith a groin, and Cordero Patterson an ankle injury. Highsmith won't play. It's not looking good for the running backs right now either, Dave.
Yeah, it's not looking good for the running backs for sure, and because of that, it'll be interesting to see if Jonathan Ward gets an elevation on Saturday there, and if so, I mean the rest, the name obviously we'll be keeping an eye on today, as you mentioned, along with Larry Ogunjobi. Russell Wilson, are we going to get a full practice and then a questionable tag? Or are we going to get a full practice and no game status tag related with him? So that's something to watch. The inactive list feels like it might be shaking out to whoever the third quarterback is. Alex Highsmith, Michael Pruitt, Patterson, and Jalen Warren. You know, that inactive list is filling up quick there, and you kind of wonder if there's an elevation or two that happens on the practice squad. Might Roman Wilson get squeezed out of a helmet yet again? And I will say this, there's a couple of clips floating around about, Roman Wilson, kind of one of those stop routes that he ran, and looked like he had problems kind of sluggish breaking down during that one. Now, look, you can't judge a guy off of just one little clip there, but, and obviously has not been active for a game yet. That's something to watch going into the weekend. Is this the week that Roman Wilson gets a helmet or not?
Yeah, I'm certainly done making predictions of when that'll happen. I've been wrong each of the last 2 weeks, and I know Mike Tomlin, I think speaking with Bob Labriola in their weekly interview that came out before the Colts game, indicated it still might be a little bit for Roman Wilson. So I'm not going to expect it. And if it does happen, when it does happen, then that's great, and we'll see exactly what his role and involvement is. With Wilson, yeah, I mean, this sounds really, it's a more prolonged and kind of drawn out process, but it sounds very similar to what happened in training camp, because Wilson said he got a couple of reps in 11 on 11. And if you look back to how they handled things in camp, what happened in camp was first couple of days really did nothing. Then he did some individual work, and he wouldn't do the boots and rollouts, but he would go through some more straight drop back passing. And then about for the next like 6 days after that, he would get between 1 and 4 reps in 11 on 11, usually just handing the ball off and then maybe occasionally throwing the football once or twice. And that happened for about a week, until then the last couple of days of training camp, he got full reps. And so I imagine he's kind of in that, that 6-day phase he was in training camp, getting between 1 and 4 reps of 11 on 11. That's why we track the training camp reps, people. We can fall back on that information, as nerdy as it is. So my thought is right now, and we'll see what the Friday report says, is it's going to be still status quo in terms of he'll be the number 3 emergency backup for this game. I know that Fittipaldo on the Fan yesterday said his feeling is that Wilson will be the number 2 and the true backup to Fields on this one. It'll be a storyline. If I had to guess, though, his status will ultimately be the same as it has been the first 4 games.
Yeah, had he been listed as full, and had the word come out or the sense come out that he got a little bit more on Thursday, I might be tempted to go the other way, but it does feel like he's going to get the questionable tag and end up as the number 3 again. But we are recording this Friday morning before the injury report. We'll see how it shakes out the rest of the way there. And then obviously all eyes will be on Saturday to see what elevations take place. How about on the Cowboys side with the injuries?
Sure. The big ones are basically already set in stone. DeMarcus Lawrence, IR, Micah Parsons will not play. The one new name that we did hear about, I think since we last spoke, Dave, is Brandon Cooks. It's not going to play in this one. That might have even happened mid-show on Wednesday, if I think back. He's got a knee issue. He got a procedure done or something, but regardless, he won't play. I mean, he had only had 9 catches for 91 yards the first month of the season, so it wasn't like he was a huge part of the offense, but certainly a deep threat, a veteran presence. It's a pretty young group behind, so it is going to be a loss. And let's also check on Trayvon Diggs, who had an ankle injury, limited Thursday. Right now, no big alarm bells he's going to miss, but we'll check that Friday injury report.
All right. Where to from here?
Let's talk coordinators. Arthur Smith and Teryl Austin speaking yesterday, and see Teryl Austin on Patrick Queen said he's been outstanding. I think the question was more geared towards the communication aspect of Queen's play and a little less about his overall play, but Austin still spoke highly of him, and that communication in that Colts game was poor overall. I thought it had been good the first 3 weeks of the season. I think being at home will help, but as I said before, when you're at home, the crowd is loud for the opposing offense. That makes things loud for the Steelers defense as well. And so their communication will also be stressed despite being at friendly confines of Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, they need look. The tape, all 22 from the game against the Colts, wasn't great for Queen, and we established that in the last show reviewing the Colts game. They need him to start bouncing back and start being the inside linebacker that they thought he might be when they signed him. And the Cowboys running game hasn't been all that so far, and they're not running a lot, but I would still imagine they're still going to try to establish the run. And they've got some big offensive linemen over there, and Queen has struggled at times with those offensive linemen getting out, getting bodies on him. So I think it's a big week for Patrick Queen, just like I thought it was a big week for him last week against the Colts. But you've got a running offense in the Cowboys that are nowhere close to the Colts. This would be a great game for Patrick Queen to kind of plant his flag in the ground, if you will.
It would, and same for this defense to bounce back and remind the fans in the NFL how well they played the first 3 games of the season. What did you make of Austin's comments about the adjustment from Richardson once he went down and out to Flacco? And Austin talked about he had to kind of get adjusted to that. Is at all concerning to you, considering it was Joe Flacco, a man that Pittsburgh knows extremely well, and a 39-year-old quarterback that was slicing and dicing at times? Or do you think that's expected and understandable, given that he's a different type of quarterback than Richardson?
Man, it's not like you don't have a book on Joe Flacco, right? And you're taking away. I don't think you had to worry about Joe Flacco taking off with the football on read options and things that were in the wheelhouse for Richardson there. So it is a bit concerning that they maybe weren't more prepared for a guy like Flacco. And as you outlined and as we've covered so many times, he really drilled that zone defense of theirs. And then the third downs, you did an excellent job of breaking down the third downs in that game. And you had a couple of miscommunications in there. I think when you combine all of it, just, not putting yourself in a position to go from one quarterback, drastically different styles, things that you defend against. When you combine that with the miscommunications that this defense had, especially in key moments in the game, it is something to be concerned about.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where I fall on it. I mean, it is, you go in with the game plan, the expectation, the assumption that Richardson is going to be the guy. And, I think you made a good point Wednesday that, does Richardson have that rhythm and timing that Flacco did if he is healthy that entire game? Probably not.
I don't think he does. And I stated this on Twitter. I'm not so sure knocking Anthony Richardson now that game.
Yeah.
And look, once again, I want to emphasize Richardson was playing well up until that point, but it was also a small sample size. I kind of wondered, though, if you get into some of those key third down situations, and look, the game obviously wouldn't have followed the exact same suit and all like that. But, they did, especially that second set of 4 third downs that the Cowboys converted. I mean, the Colts converted. You do wonder how many of those Anthony Richardson might have converted. And the obviously the tape going into this one on Richardson was he's going to lollipop a few of those and give you a couple of chances to make some turnovers in the game. And you do wonder how this game would have played out had Richardson stayed through it and the Steelers not had to adjust and yada. And obviously you don't know what would happen with Jonathan Taylor and him getting dinged up along the way. But it does make you wonder if the worst thing they did in that game was to knock Anthony Richardson out of it.
Yeah, we'll never know. Pros and cons. I think run game would have been harder to stop, but the pass defense might have had an easier time. But I think it just came down to Pittsburgh being sloppy, miscommunication, not being on the same page, the pass rush not really being able to get home. And Marcus Flacco did do a good job reading things, getting the ball out of his hand early. And I will say, even though Flacco's a known guy, it is, I would probably call it uncommon for a backup quarterback to be completely immobile when the starter is mobile like Richardson. Typically, teams want a backup that has a similar mobility skill set to be able to preserve those things in the playbook. And so, while teams never plan for the backup quarterback, we're not planning for Dak Prescott's backup in this game to have a radically different skill set like that. Something I think any team would have to adjust to on the fly. So not giving a pass, defense has to be cleaner. Obviously, it was a poor performance, their worst one of the season, obviously, but I do give a little bit of grace here, and all that really matters is bouncing back against Dallas.
All right, parse out what the best we can, the question about Joey Porter and CeeDee Lamb. And we do not have the audio or the video from this. We're working off a transcript, and sometimes context can be lost. Parse it out what you think it means.
Yeah, I really can't give a straight answer on it. The transcript says, is Joey Porter in your ear and shadow CeeDee Lamb this week, even though he moves inside more than his assignment? And Austin's response was, quote, no, I don't think so this week. He may be in our ear. We'll find out on Sunday. I assume that Porter will be shadowing Lamb quite a bit, especially in those weighty down situations. So, I mean, that's what Porter's been doing all season. I don't know why that'd be different against a top-tier receiver like CeeDee Lamb.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think common sense tells you, look, and here's one of my, it's no secret, and I'll let the cat out of the bag early here. One of my keys to the game, instead of silence of the lambs, it'll be silence the lamb. You can't let that guy kill you, especially the way this Cowboys offense has been so far. you got to make sure that you keep CeeDee Lamb bottled up. So I would imagine Joey Porter's going to follow him pretty much everywhere he goes on the field on Sunday night.
Agreed. Anything else from Teryl Austin you want to discuss, Dave?
Not much. I mean, he was asked about TJ Watt being held. Yeah, there's not much there other than what I think we hit on.
I think my Twitter mentions the last 2 days have been nothing of people telling me that TJ Watt was held in this game. I'm aware of some of the clips out there. I just thought the Colts had a good game plan beyond that because, listen, every team holds TJ Watt. The Colts are not the first team to invent holding TJ Watt and getting away with it. But I thought what he did in the run game, the zone read stuff early before Richardson's injury, the jet action to hold him backside when Flacco came in, and the attention they showed him, the ball getting out quick. I thought that was as impactful as the couple of holds that happened on TJ Watt.
Agreed. All right. What on Arthur Smith stuck out to you?
It's not too often in a coordinator session you get what does he say, to take Vienna reference and a Cheesecake Factory reference in the same conversation, but that was the duality of Arthur Smith in this one.
I know a lot about Cheesecake Factory, less so about French history.
Vienna.
I'm going to be right up in front and honest with you on that.
I wasn't sure which one you were leaning towards, which one you had a background on. So I'm glad you cleared that one. I'm the same way, by the way. I've heard the reference before, but that's about the extent of it. And I've never been to a Cheesecake Factory, though. Have you? I assume you've been to a Cheesecake Factory?
I mean, it's not high on my list of places to visit, but they do have great cheesecake, as they probably should. We have one here in Vegas. I think we've been to it about 3 times since we moved out here. But I guess the thing there is they got so many different type of cheesecakes to choose from, right?
And well, I think it's also a giant menu in general is my vague understanding of Cheesecake Factory. But anyway, more to the point here on Justin Fields, make the segue.
We're not going to have any kind of food show, are we? At some point in our career, is that what we make out of all this?
Yeah, we're not going to do the diners, drive-ins, and dives 2.0.
Which is a great show, by the way.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic show to binge watch because they run 47,000 episodes of it. Anyway, the references about Cheesecake Factory was essentially about how much is on Justin Fields' plate in terms of the freedom he has to line of scrimmage and the calls. And, I think Smith, what it sounds like to me is there's limited autonomy that Fields has. Sometimes they'll call 2 plays in the huddle and give him some options or some checks. But obviously Fields, as a new quarterback in this system, a new offensive coordinator, or the guy that was not supposed to be starting until 3 days before week 1, he does not have the keys to this offense. And there's been some freak out from that. But to me, that is understandable. And overall, I think it has worked well.
At some point, though, you got to, assuming he stays a starter, you got to start loosening the reins on some of that, though, right?
Yeah, I think it happens over time. And I mean, who's to say it hasn't already? I think in the Denver game, Fields talked about it, they put in more no huddle that game. And we saw the offense open up against the Chargers. It felt more open. So I think the offense has come along in that regard.
The biggest buzz phrase, I think, this week is, from Ryan Clark and several talking heads, is they got to open up this offense more earlier in games. What does that mean to you? Or is that just lip service?
I mean, it's a little catch-all, but I think it means don't run the ball so often.
Catch-all, that's probably the better word.
Yeah, it's a little vague, but yeah, I think, the idea, and I hadn't studied some of the numbers, but run a little less on first down, be a little less run early to set up the pass on third down, which I can understand to some degree, but they've used play pass a ton. They've opened up games with that. I think the Broncos game is one example where they went play action early. It just wasn't there. The play action has really been ineffective this year overall. But yeah, again, I've seen this offense open up some. We saw it open up in the second half because it had to against the Colts. And maybe that gives some confidence of, okay, if we give Fields the keys, as we did in the second half, because we had to, he ran it well, they executed, they produced, they put the ball in the end zone, that may give them some more confidence to start out that way going forward.
I had a feeling we'd go down this rabbit hole, and I did homework. I think on first down this year, this team is 60% or 59% run, 41% drop back pass. They rank down in other words, they're more run heavy versus drop back heavy on first downs. There are only 4 teams that run more on this is 1st and 10, by the way, situations. There are only 4 teams that run more on first down percentage wise, 1st and 10, than they do. That would be the Bills, the Vikings, the Chargers, and the Packers. The Packers 67.3% of the time run on 1st and 10. The Chargers 66.7, and why wouldn't you really? The Vikings, as we all predicted, the 4-0 Minnesota Vikings with Sam Darnold 64.5%, and the Bills at 61.2, and then the Steelers at 59. But within that, though, we knew that this was probably going to be a run-first offense, heavy tight end usage, heavier personnel groupings. All that said, do they do for tendency purposes? Maybe do they? And obviously, a lot plays into what defense you think you're going to face, and that. Should we start seeing this? I guess where I'm going is, should we start maybe seeing this balance out a little bit more and trend a little bit more towards a 50-50 run pass in 1st and 10 situations?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of variables at play there. Are those numbers for the entire game? I'm assuming, just off the top.
Yeah, it does not take into account garbage time or behind time or anything like that.
Right. So that has a factor. Obviously, you got the winning teams you just mentioned, teams that are undefeated or 3-1, and the Packers had a quarterback situation where they ran the ball 53 times against. Who was that? Against the Colts, actually, it was a couple weeks ago. So there's that factor. We're talking about so much. It's a too high world. Well, if it's a too high world, how do teams respond to that? They're going to run the football. As you said, Pittsburgh's personality, not a shock. They're going to run the ball early. So there's probably a lot of factors, and over time, things probably balance out in that regard as the ebbs and flows of the season occurs. So I'm not as alarmed as others. I mean, there's certainly some critiques of Arthur Smith and about the run game was just too plain static last week. I thought it was kind of a poor game plan to just kind of try to gash and bully their way up front, which did not work against that Colts, plugging interior defensive line. But yeah, I think those numbers will probably just balance out throughout the course of the season.
By the way, while I'm going to get my money's worth out of this research here, this homework that I did, the Cowboys lead the league in pass and dropbacks on 1st and 10 situations. 61.4% of the time. They run just 38.6% of the time on 1st and 10. So get that, get usage out of my numbers there.
Yeah, there you go. Get your mileage there. So what else from Arthur Smith did you hear or read from that caught your attention?
Not much, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I think the big talking point was, and look, he thought, what did he say about Fields? He thought if there was basically he thought he was going to take over the game there.
Yeah, that was a big comment from Arthur Smith. A lot of praise for the job that Fields did in the second half. And yeah, I mean, what was the exact comment? Let me try to pull it up here. I'm trying to find the exact wording in this one. I can't find it off the top of my head, but he says, quote, "There are things we all have to work on, but I certainly thought in the second half what was cool to watch as a coach and a play caller, when somebody gets in that kind of flow, he damn near took the game over. When that happens and you feel it with a player, it doesn't matter what I called, you felt him rolling. That was such a bitter pill to swallow how the game ended," of course, referencing to that final drive that, got close and the snap happened and the game was a wrap after that. But Smith certainly impressed by the job Fields did to get that team even back in a situation to potentially tie or win the game.
And what did you think about, he was asked about play action games so far, average depth of target being low and the amount of time Justin is hitting, check downs in there.
Yeah, he said, again, in a too high world that defenses are trying to prevent the big play from happening over the top, which is probably some fairness to that. I should have studied that in my study I did on play action. But I mean, I just think bottom line is they've not been effective in play pass. And if they're getting check downs, and how much is it really worth doing? So hopefully it opens up over time. And even on some of I think you referenced some of the penalties there's been, and I didn't go through every single one, but the Denver game, for example, on some of the pass interference calls, there really weren't play action. I think the one on Pickens, it was a half-hearted one, but the one to Jefferson, there was no play action. And the one to Pickens, the corner was in man. He's not looking at the play action. It was immaterial to the result of the play. So I mean, I kind of get the comment from Smith. I can kind of understand it, but the bottom line to me is the bottom line. The bottom line is play action has been really ineffective for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they need to see that cleaned up. And when you see, I was as part of breaking down the Cowboys defense ahead of this, watching Giants game was one of them that I watched along with the Saints game and the Ravens game there. Daniel Jones is good at play action. Did you pick up on that?
I didn't, but I'll buy that.
And we talked about this on Wednesday or Monday or Wednesday, didn't we? About how you need if they would we don't know what, none of that stuff really leaks out there, but if they should make more of an onus to try to sell the play action. And I think you did getting ahead of our skis here a little bit here, but I think you even in the scouting report this week, some of these fake pitches and some of the play action that they've had run against them, talking about the Cowboys, seems to have been effective.
Yeah, I just feel like Dallas is an aggressive defense, and you can get them on some play fakes. There were some boots that have been effective, and they're guys that really want to attack the football. They really want to try to jump on top of things. Dallas's defense, which can provide some big plays for them, but also can hurt them as well. So talk about more of that later, how to attack the Dallas defense. But yeah, I think you can fool those guys pretty good.
All right, nothing else really stuck out to me about Arthur, unless you've got something.
I mean, we was asked about Naji and the lack of run game success, and Smith kind of admitted the Colts had a good game plan and they sent more edge pressure. I was trying to think exactly what that meant. I don't know if it was some of the stuff where like EJ Speed would walk out and then he would blitz in. That happened twice. He got like 2 tackles for a loss off of that, one on Patterson, one on Harris. But kind of admitted the Colts had some unexpected answers for Pittsburgh's run game.
Why do you imagine you broke down all those Naji runs, did an excellent job, and it's basically what we had set out of the shoot, right? That the with a lot of mid-zone stuff with Naji, and it just wasn't blocked up very well across the board on those plays. And I think the fact that he had, 19 yard, whatever it was, how he got that, I think that's pretty amazing there. But we're looking at this on a game by game basis. Neither one of us would have Naji Harris right now as a top 10 running back in the league. I think you could get a lot of pushback for even putting him as a top 15 running back in this league right now. But why do you imagine, is this just fans piling on, media piling on? Because even Chris Hoke, and we have a lot of respect for Chris Hoke, been on the show quite a few times. He talked about, and I took it specifically in his breakdown of the Colts game, that Naji's vision isn't great. I would push back on that quite a bit on this one specific game, but you got a lot of pushback on your breakdown of Naji against the Colts. And what is that? Just people having opinions out there and they don't want to be proven wrong on them, or why do you think you got the pushback that you got, or we got?
Yeah, it's hard to say. The tape is the tape to me, and the tape said the holes really weren't there. And the question becomes, why were things more successful with Cordero Patterson? I think the scheme was a bit different. They had run at a higher percentage, more gap runs that just simply were blocked up better. I showed the example in the video too of, I mentioned this, I think, on Wednesday's show, that they ran crunch the first time with Patterson, huge hole, big gain. Second time with Harris, there was no hole at all. Darnell Washington lost his block. It was a mess, and things closed up. So don't mishear me. I mean, I think this Patterson, the burstier runner? Yeah, I think he is. Is he the more kind of shifty, quick step, change of direction, subtle movement runner? Yeah, I think he is over Harris right now. I mean, I think the issue with Harris is that he generally needs some sort of kind of runway to get going to make some of those more movements. You watched the screen that he took for 32 yards out in space. He ran well. He cut back. He made guys miss. He ran people over. That was a great Naji Harris run once he got a little bit of space. And this offensive line is not always providing some kind of clean runways for Harris to get going. But I don't want to make too much out of the one game performance. You look at the Chargers game, that final drive, Harris and Patterson both ran well. They both were making hay and closed that game out with a true 4 or 5 minute offense in that one. So let's not forget about what happened just 2 weeks ago of how well both players ran. So, is there critiques of Harris? Absolutely. Is he ever going to be a big play runner? No, he's not. And that is a concern. That caps his ceiling, and we can talk about that for sure. But in this game specifically, I just thought it was really poorly blocked. I thought the tape proved that.
I agree. I'll have more on Naji and my thoughts on this upcoming game as will you here later in the show.
Yeah, it'll be a big test against a Cowboys run defense that has not been great this season. All right, Dave, let's do quickly before we get to Joseph Hoyt about a Cowboys update. Devante Adams update, and the reporting is that Pittsburgh is truly interested. There have been talks between Pittsburgh and the Raiders. It sounds like they're one of the top 3 teams for whatever that is worth, which may not be much in a rumor happy world. Between them, the Saints and the Jets, the prevailing wisdom is the Jets are the favorite, obviously with the Aaron Rodgers connection and the need to try to go all in and make a real run at this thing. Where do you stand right now on Pittsburgh's odds of landing Devante Adams?
First and foremost, it's not going to happen today. Would be my. I'm going to go out on a limb there and say before this weekend, Devante Adams will not be traded.
But it could happen soon, it sounds like. Maybe next week is what the buzz is. Again, take it for whatever it's worth, but that's the buzz.
Now, look, I don't know how there's been reports that he really does have a hamstring injury and all this. And I think it is important to remember that, let's see, the Jets are overseas, right? This week.
London game.
So there's that to take into consideration. The Steelers do play the Raiders next week. So that's an interesting part of this that I think needs to be taken into consideration, but it would not, obviously if you have a deal in place and think you can get a deal done, it does sound like they would like to try to get this done sooner rather than later. I just can't help but think though, that the connections with either of the 2 quarterbacks, Carr in New Orleans or Aaron Rodgers in New York, reigns supreme here. But within that, I think the Jets have the best ability too of saying of pushing down that price tag on saying, look, we don't really have to have him with the wide receivers that we have here. But if you're willing to get rid of them, we'll take them off your hands. As far as the Steelers' chances go, I think we established the fact the Steelers should be aggressive in this. But I think too, you have to. If you're going to give up any compensation, we talked about this the other day. If you give up any compensation that's deemed significant, you definitely want to look. Whoever trades for Devante Adams in this situation is not going to pay him. People are focusing in way too much on the 2025 and 2026 salaries, especially if the Raiders expect to get the compensation that's being thrown around out there, second or third or multiple or what have you. People are focusing way too much on what Devante Adams is scheduled to earn in 2025 and 2026. If any team is going to give the Raiders anything significant for Devante Adams, they are going to want to work out some sort of a redo on those last 2 years there. The Steelers included here. And do I think the Steelers would trade for him without a deal in place, a rework deal? No, because I think they need to look at this as possibility of having Devante Adams past 2024. So, I think it comes down to, can the Steelers, give better compensation than maybe a team like the Jets in this? And how interested is, because like it or not, Devante Adams has a say in this because his contract, his final 2 years of his contract are in play here that he would have to renegotiate to a team giving up a lot of compensation here. That plays into it. My gut feeling is though that it's not going to be the Steelers.
Do you think it's going to be the Jets, or you just think it's going to be the field?
I obviously I put the Jets in the driver's seat here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too. Although sometimes I always caution, sometimes what we think is going to happen, what the conventional wisdom is, does not always actually end up being the case. So I don't know, what's going to happen here. I agree that I think teams who target Adams want him for more than just the rental. They want to have him here in 2025 and 2026. And you're right. Listen, when that deal got done, that 25 and 26 salaries, they were not intended to be paid out. Even the Raiders, I think, had no intention to pay those out. That was a backloaded gucontract to, gussy up the average yearly value. You pointed out in the last show, broke that down really well. So, that was just always kind of funny money overall. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, the report is that Adams says he's open to coming to other places than just the Jets. It's not like he's saying I'm going to the Jets or nowhere else. Trade me there. So Pittsburgh can offer a lot of similar selling points as New York. It's a competitive team. They got better quarterback play, or good quarterback play. Overall, it's not an anchor on this team that's weighing them down. You can say the stable franchise. You don't have Aaron Rodgers, and that's obviously the big selling point there. But we shall see. They're in the mix. They'll push for it. They should. We'll see what happens.
Look, as I stated the other day, is it plausible for the Steelers to get this done on all aspects? Trade compensation, contract, everything involved. Yes, it is. I would imagine, though, that if the Steelers do get it done, once again, I would be a bit surprised if a second was included within that. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I would think that they would try to trend more to maybe a third, and then obviously getting something worked out with Devante Adams to make those final 2 years something they could work with moving forward here. But it is doable on the Steelers' end. I kind of wonder if a week or two from now we'll be talking about Devante Adams being traded to the Jets.
Yeah, certainly would not bat an eye if that occurs. We'll keep you updated and hopefully get an answer by next week. All right, Dave, let's take a pause here and come back with Joseph Hoyt, who covers the Cowboys for DLLS Sports and alldls.com. Check him out there. Great work. It's an upstart site doing a heck of a job. Also follow Joseph on Twitter at Joe J. Hoyt. That's HOYT. Take a pause and come back with Joseph.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 5 of the NFL season. The Pittsburgh Steelers are hosting the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. And as we do every week on a Friday, we have a beat writer who covers the opposing team in to help us start breaking down the game of the week. And this week, first timer on the show, we are pleased to have Joseph Hoyt join us. Joseph, longtime Cowboys reporter. He now is with alldls.com, a new platform. Got a lot of veteran guys over there working for them. Joseph, welcome to the Terrible Podcast on this Friday. Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, happy Friday to you as well, Dave. And thank you for having me on. I love the name of the podcast. I grew up a big Steelers fan, so he knows all about it. So it's an honor to be here. Appreciate it.
All right. We appreciate it. And folks, you can make sure you're following Joseph on Twitter at Joe J. Hoyt, HOYT. And once again, make sure you're reading his work leading up to the game at alldls.com. All right, Joseph, let's get into this thing. Cowboys come in a very banged up team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. No Micah Parsons, no DeMarcus Lawrence. The news came out about Brandon Cooks. Give us an overview about the health of the team and specifically, I mean, look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that those are big losses on really both sides of the football for this team. And it seems like I think Bland might be banged up in the secondary as well, too. So how about an overview of the health situation here?
Yeah, if you guys have ever seen Dumb and Dumber and they have that one scene where it says our pets' heads are falling off, I think that's what Cowboys fans kind of felt this week. We kind of knew coming out of the Giants game last Thursday that DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons would be out for at least a little bit. And then Mike McCarthy told us the next day, hey, actually kind of worse than what we anticipated. Micah Parsons is potentially out through the bye week. He's got a high ankle sprain, definitely not playing against Pittsburgh. DeMarcus Lawrence got moved to IR. He's got reportedly a Liz Frank injury. They're calling it a foot sprain. That's something that has to be monitored. Brandon Cooks was kind of the interesting one, though, because that happened actually earlier this week because he actually had some injections, to kind of clean up some stuff to avoid maybe a scope in his knee, after the Giants game. That got infected, which then resulted in a washout, is what they call it, and then a little bit of a meniscus trim. So he's out for a little while. He's definitely not playing. The two guys to monitor, though, for Steeler fans, you mentioned Deron Bland. He's not coming off. His practice window is not open. He's not coming off IR. But Kalen Carson, the rookie corner that played really well in the preseason, had some ups and downs so far in the regular season. He missed last week against the Giants with a shoulder injury. They put in Amani Oruwariye as the backup to Andrew Booth, who actually got the original start. Andrew Booth struggled. Amani Oruwariye came out and played decently in the second half. But that's a guy that that's a spot could be very vulnerable for the Cowboys. And also Trayvon Diggs was limited in practice with an ankle injury. He left practice a little early. So if they're out, Kalen Carson and Trayvon Diggs, obviously still situations in limbo there. But those are two situations Steeler fans should watch because that would make them very vulnerable, not only in the front end with DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons out, but in the back end as well.
All right, about this, the Cowboys offense coming into this one, it's everybody knows about Dak Prescott and his abilities over the years, and he's obviously a big name. CeeDee Lamb's the other big offensive weapon over there. This Cowboys team, though, has had troubles running the football out of the chute here. I think they have 4 runs of 10 yards or longer on the season so far. I think that's last in the NFL, and CeeDee Lamb, I think, has 3 of those. With I think Rico Dowell has the other one there. What can you put your finger on about the running game and its inability to really get going so far, and what do you see them trying to do to maybe correct that heading into this game against the Steelers?
Well, I think it's a 3-part situation, Dave. And I think actually I'll give you the answer first. I'm not very optimistic about the Cowboys running game against the Steelers. But I'll give you 3 reasons why. One, it's kind of something we knew all the way back in the offseason. This was going to be a position they had to fill. Tony Pollard left to Tennessee. They said, okay, there's some other guys out there. Derrick Henry's in our backyard. Maybe the Cowboys make a call to him. They do not. You've seen what he's been doing in Baltimore. Instead, the Cowboys, maybe they'll draft someone, right? Well, no, they didn't draft anyone. Instead, they brought back Rico Dowdle, who has impressed a little bit in short roles, but has never sustained a fully healthy season coming out of South Carolina. Then they brought Ezekiel Elliott back, which kind of turned some eyebrows. They paired that with 6th-round rookie or 6th-round second-year guy, Deuce Vaughn, who just really hasn't, found a niche yet in the Cowboys offense. So to be honest with you, it's a personnel thing. The second thing is they got 2 rookie offensive linemen and starting center Cooper Beebe and starting left tackle Tyler Guyton. The running game is very, especially in the Cowboys, it's system is very based on synchronicity. It's very based on having a good relationship and good continuity. And to be honest with you, I don't think this offensive line has found it yet. And lastly, this running game just hasn't had enough opportunities. It's something that they've kind of hammered over and over again. Game situations have dictated that they don't really get the chance to run the ball. If you kind of look against Cleveland, they couldn't capitalize on 3rd down. They couldn't sustain drives, even though their defense was handling that one. The next 2 weeks, they got the doors blown off of them early on and had to play catch up the entire game. And against the Ravens, they nearly did. But point being, they have not had the chance to really sustain a running game. There's no momentum. There's no rhythm there. And that's something that Cowboy fans have been waiting. The guy that they kind of want is Dalvin Cook to come off the practice squad. That's not happening this week, most likely, according to Jerry Jones. So for now, you're going to have a Cowboys running game that needs more attempts. They need them to actually have that as a consistent part of their offense against the Steelers team. To play the complementary football they want. To be honest with you, I'm not optimistic it happens.
Joseph, a 2-part question kind of related to that. A, why is Dalvin Cook not an option? And then 2, I know that Hunter Lipke has gotten an expanded role. Looks like some 3rd down work. How has he kind of integrated himself into the offense, and how would you describe his current role in it?
Yeah, great question about Lipke, because he's a guy, it's kind of funny. We're 4 weeks into this thing, and, a lot of Cowboy fans are chanting, we want more Hunter Lipke. And if you would have said that a year ago, when, that might have been, hey, I mean, I like Hunter Lipke a lot, but he doesn't have the track record of a guy like Kyle Juszczyk, for example, right?
Right.
But Hunter Lipke's evolving in this offense. He's a guy that the Cowboys believe can be a true ball carrier. They ran him on an option route last week to kind of give you a little insight into what they think of his playmaking ability. He's a guy I wouldn't sleep on, though, in terms of potential play action and making plays after the catch. But in terms of Dalvin Cook, originally they said, hey, it's a terminology thing. We just want to get him into the offense. We're ramping him up. Well, that ramp up is finished. And so I think right now, the stage we're at, and I kind of alluded to it with the lack of attempts, they don't feel like they've had enough of a sample size to properly evaluate the 3 running backs that are currently on the roster. So right now, they're using Dalvin Cook strictly as a depth piece for the moment that they think that trio, that running back by committee, as they call it, is not good enough. I think Cowboy fans have already made their evaluation, and the team clearly hasn't. And we'll kind of see if, maybe that sample size gets a little bit deeper against the Steelers.
You referenced it, and Dallas kind of built like Pittsburgh, a couple of rookies along the offensive line, first-round tackle, day 2 center. What's your evaluation so far of Guyton making that switch from right tackle to left tackle and then Beebe at center? How have those two guys done?
Yeah, I wrote a feature on it this week. Kind of unsurprisingly, Tyler Guyton has struggled. He's had growing pains is kind of what is the term everyone's using. And it makes sense, to be honest with you. He's a guy that had, 21 starts in college at tackle. And, he was a basketball player growing up in high school. This is not a guy that's been kind of the experience and the technique, tactician that you might think for some first-round offensive tackles. And considering where they drafted, it makes sense, 29th overall. But he's a guy with a lot of potential, and he's 6'8". He's got, probably, around the average arms, about the 34.5, 35-inch arms. So he's a guy, though, that's been very susceptible to one move specifically, and that's the rip move. You go back and watch against the Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau beat him multiple times to get pressures and even got a sack. He had 5 pressures against Tyler Guyton and 1 sack, but he also drew 3 holding calls against Tyler Guyton, 2 of which came on rip moves. So that's a move that if you're the Steelers fans, and I asked Brian Schottenheimer, the Cowboys offensive coordinator, knowing that that's on tape, is that something you emphasize this week? And they said, oh, yeah, because I can guarantee you if the fans and the media are seeing it, the Steelers are watching it too. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's something that they definitely want to work on a lot with Tyler Guyton. Quickly on Cooper Beebe, he's been stout. Not a lot of pressures in the center position, which shouldn't be a surprise considering, not a lot of great pass rushing nose tackles out there. But he's been good. He's been solid in the run game. The biggest thing with him was snaps. He has never played center before, at least going back to when he played in Pop Warner. But he had never played center, in a really competitive level. Snaps were a little bit of an issue early in training camp. That has not been a problem at all, though. He's the guy that's been solid, to say the least.
How has Guyton handled speed? Because obviously the Steelers are not going to have Alex Highsmith on that other side. Even though Watt occasionally will flip over to the side, to the other side, not expecting it to happen too much. But Herbig does, Nick Herbig, who will start over there at right outside linebacker, does go to the University of Watt, if you will. Tries to mimic everything. I think Mike Tomlin said it best a couple of days ago. If TJ Watt has something for breakfast, Herbig wants it for lunch. Kind of reference there, but Herbig is good with the speed aspect of getting around the edge. How has Guyton handled speed?
See, that's a great question because Guyton has actually handled speed pretty decently, right? He's very athletic. The reason why for a guy who hasn't much experience and only had really one sustained starting season at Oklahoma, even at right tackle, not left tackle, the reason he's a first-round pick is because he's so athletic and so talented. The problem is, though, he has not really put it together from a technique standpoint, from a footwork specifically, and a hand placement standpoint. I think Tyler Guyton's biggest problem is not horizontally in terms of speed. I think it's vertically. I think if players have shown that they can get underneath him and they can kind of get in his, breastplate, get in his armpit area, that they can kind of force him into some precarious positions, some awkward places. So I think that if you're Alex Herbig, I'm trying to, maybe set up with speed, but I'm trying to go underneath. I'm trying to put Tyler Guyton in positions that he doesn't want to. I'm trying to make him bend, frankly. For a 6'8" guy that's still kind of trying to get his footing with that, I think that's the most precarious position for Tyler Guyton.
And Nick Herbig is a little bit on the shorter side. He can dip well, so that might be something to watch because obviously T.J. Watt will have all the attention of Terrence Steele on the other side, along with some chipping tight ends and running backs, just the usual fare there. All right, moving over to the defensive side of football, and we hit up on it on the top there. You're missing guys like Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. That's tough to overcome. And how will I guess it's going to be Marshawn Nealon on one side, and then I guess Golston on the other side there. And I think one thing that stuck out on tape specifically in the game against the Ravens, and yeah, we're talking about an extreme athlete in Lamar Jackson, is that read option that they did with them. And it just looked like the Ravens were cheating a lot. Now, obviously, you have the threat of Derrick Henry in the backfield as part of that. But, you do have an athletic quarterback in Justin Fields. I would imagine that the onus this week, though, is to not let Justin Fields get outside on some of those read options and kind of force the handoff to Naji Harris inside. Is that how you're reading that? And what's your take on those two edge guys coming into this game?
Yeah, I think quickly touching on the zone read and the speed option aspect, I was probably the biggest proponent of hitting the panic button after that Ravens game, because to me, that set a defense that could not properly identify how to handle this, right? And yes, Lamar Jackson is fast, Derrick Henry is strong, but they were out of position constantly, guys, and then they could not handle it. It looked like a kind of a college high school defense that hadn't seen a zone read or a speed option before. It was mystifying. They did get better on that against the Giants. They definitely got some gap and scrape exchange dialed in a little bit there, a little bit more responsibilities there. Obviously, Daniel Jones is no Lamar Jackson. Justin Fields can be pretty fast, though. So I wonder if that's something the Steelers are going to try to incorporate. I would imagine they do. As for replacing Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, those are two alphas that you can't really replace, right? Those are two, as Jordan Lewis said, that's like losing two Dak Prescotts. Those are the motors and the engine. That's going to be hard to replace. But Marshawn Nealon is a guy that they draft in the second round. He's got a great motor. He's been solid in run defense. He's a guy that they like a lot. And he's a guy that actually they didn't anticipate him playing as much as he already has, because they had Sam Williams as a defensive end that they thought was going to take a big step this year. He tore his ACL in training camp, prompting Marshawn Nealon to take a big step. Now Marshawn Nealon's going to have to take a bigger step. He'll probably have to play 75, 80% of snaps against the Steelers on Sunday. And then to replace, you mentioned Chauncey Golston. I think he's a guy that's actually more comfortable, a little bit more in that five technique kind of area, the defensive end role. He's been playing a little bit more inside because of the lack of depth on the interior. The other guy that they're going to bring up is Carl Lawson. He's a guy, the name sounds familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a guy
we're big Carl Lawson fans, especially early on in his career.
Yeah, he was a stud. And, I think he's trying. This will be his third elevation for the Cowboys before they have to decide whether they add him to the active roster or cut bait, or someone else picks him up. And so he's a guy that's definitely going to try to showcase something. And last guy, they did sign KJ Henry off the Bengals practice squad. And that's a guy that, you kind of look at the ability, former 6th round pick, what can he bring? The one thing he does bring is speed. He runs about a 4.5 40-yard dash. And I think that's the biggest problem when you lose Micah Parsons is how do you replicate that speed? How do you replicate something that the defense has grown accustomed to relying on? He can at least do that, maybe on third downs. The other guy to watch, though, is maybe in terms of generating pass rush, is DeMarvion Overshown. I'd be curious to see if they move him around a lot as well in blitzing formation.
I know on some of those third down pressure looks, you guys like to bring some pressure or the appearance of pressure and potentially confuse the Steelers' young offensive line. Let me ask you about Naji Smith, a big nose tackle. My 30,000-foot view is the first couple games of the year sounded pretty rough as the Cowboys' run defense struggled. The Giants game seemed to be his best performance. Is that fair? And just what's your overall evaluation of his play so far this season?
Yeah, Alex, it wasn't only the first 3 games of the season that's been a struggle. It was all of last season. He was, he had a rough first season for a first-round pick for the Cowboys. Was not living up to expectations. And then the first 3 training camp was a little bit, there's some bright spots, but we'll see. And then first 3 games struggled, but against the New York Giants, he finally looked like the guy that they drafted in the first round. The guy that was one of the top 5 guys on Bruce Feldman's freak list, right? And a big reason why, I think what they did is they really mandated him to run some specific stunts, right? Mike Zimmer kind of talked about this, this past week where, Mozzie had the strength. He's got the length. He's got the base, the athletic ability to be in the right spots. He just didn't have the confidence to actually make plays when he was there. He didn't have the finishing ability. And against the Giants, he finally showcased that. He had I think it was the first play of the second half where he split 2 defenders on a stunt and then had a TFL where he kind of threw a dude and was like, oh my gosh, is this the same Ozzie Smith that we saw last season? This week, we saw Mozzie Smith in the locker room, and it was kind of a sad locker room. in the wake of Micah Parsons. He was talking on one side, with a boot on and a scooter next to him. So it was kind of a little bit doom and gloom. But then Mozzie Smith, who's not really in the locker room very often for media portion, he was there and he kind of had a little pep in his step. And part of me thinks that he's a more confident player. I think he's going to try to build off that. And I think Mike Zimmer is going to try and put him in positions that allow him to build off that.
Yeah, that matchup between him and Zach Frazier could be a fun one that may determine a lot in this game. My last question for you, then I'll let Dave finish things out. Is this secondary for Dallas? Is Bland, is he remaining on IR? Deron Bland, is he not playing in this game, correct?
Yeah, he's not playing this game.
Okay, gotcha. And then is this still kind of a feast-famine secondary? They feel very aggressive. I know Diggs, the whole story on him is a lot of big plays made, a lot of big plays given up. Kind of feels like the MO on the Cowboys secondary as a whole. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's not as feast as famine as it may have appeared in previous seasons, right? And because I think ultimately, we talk a lot of it here in Dallas about how the Steelers, for example, personify Mike Tomlin, right? Tough and gritty and all that stuff. I think the Dallas Cowboys secondary personifies Al Harris in terms of, hey, we're going to go and try and make plays on the ball. We're going to take some risks every once in a while when we're there. I also just don't think they've been in position to do it because teams are understand why throw it against this Cowboys secondary when we can just run it down their throat, right? And even last week you saw it, Alex, I mean, you did a great film breakdown too. If you watch that Giants game, pretty much Malik Neighbors versus the world, right? And they were doing a lot of stuff to get Malik Neighbors out in space and schemed open. And I think that ultimately they did a great job with that. So we didn't really even see a lot of true secondary matching up. And the other thing too is with Andrew Booth, he was kind of a mark man. He was a little bit of a target out there when he was out there. So I don't think they've had a lot of abilities to be feast or famine because, to be honest with you, there's just been a lot of famine in the running game against them.
Joseph, they've been primarily cover 3 type team, and I would imagine with all these injuries and with a running quarterback or mobile quarterback in Justin Fields, that they'll try to probably keep things as simple as possible. So I would imagine a lot of cover 3 in this again against the Steelers and just try to keep a lid on things. Is that way you're seeing things defensively this week?
I think that's what you'd think, right? But part of me wonders if you might see the old Mike Zimmer kind of get real creative and try and make up for some of the absence of this. I mean, maybe you see a lot of, third down, fire zones and blitzes, because at the end of the day, they do like their linebackers, in terms of trying to replicate some of that coverage. They haven't lost them. Kendricks is very smart. They like the way he plays. DeMarvin Overshown is one of the fastest linebackers in the NFL. So I part of me wonders if going simple, they go a little bit extravagant in terms of some of the blitz looks. They haven't really done it yet. And part of me wonders if this is the game to do it. But I think the likelihood is more on what you said in terms of keeping it simple, trying to have an offense keep pace with the Steelers offense as well. Maybe kind of similar to a little bit to what the Colts and Steelers had last week.
You talk about everybody should know who Eric Kendricks is at this point, and obviously with the injuries, some of the bigger names out. Who is Overshown the most underrated player on this defensive side of football going into this game?
I think underrated is so I laugh just because he's very funny because he's so fast and so athletic and he makes so many highlight plays. But reminder, this is his second year and he missed all of last season with a torn ACL, right? So he is still learning the ways of the defense, and he is currently just a see-ball, hit-ball guy. Like you could probably – he's still learning, how the nuances of the NFL. But, he's a guy – if you go watch – if the Steelers run a flat route to Naji Harris and he catches it and he turns around, you might see DeMarvin Overshown like a speeding bullet. The dude plays at one speed. It's very fun to watch. So I think underrated, sure, but there's still some – you might see him miss tackle though, because he's running so fast. He's a little bit kind of, a little bit out of his skis a little bit at times because he's going so fast. So that's kind of the one thing with him. But when he makes plays, man, he flashes.
Before I get your prediction here, what was the expectations for this team going into the season, and where did those expectations sit 4 games into this season with all the injuries and all?
Yeah, it's tough because this was a team that had, won 12 games the last 3 seasons, right? Had made the playoffs the last 3 seasons. They were the reigning NFC East champion. But then on paper, they got worse this offseason, and obviously they had big paydays coming for Dak Prescott, for CeeDee Lamb, and some budget stuff. And ultimately, people wondered, okay, maybe as Jerry Jones said before the draft, Are our no names going to become names? And I think we're still waiting for it. That was my big theme for the Cowboys this week. Can the no names undergo that transformation and become names? I'm a little less optimistic in terms of where they at from the season standpoint. They're 2-2 right now. They're going to a tough Steelers team on Sunday Night Football. Then they host the Detroit Lions, who are in the NFC Championship. And then they go on the road to play the other team in the NFC Championship last year, the San Francisco 49ers, who have had their number. And then after that, you even have Atlanta after that too. Long story short, the road is about to get very, very tough for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think that they need to go 1-2 in their next 3 games to even salvage a chance at the postseason. And I think that might be difficult to do.
All right, Joseph, this is a part of the interview that we usually ask the beat writer to give us a prediction for the game. I don't know if you'd like to spoil anything, but feel free. What are your thoughts, Cowboys at Steelers on Sunday night? And feel free to throw the final score out there.
Yeah, no, I think we could see a game where ultimately it's about players making plays, right? And I think we could see some plays made on both sides of the ball. I'm going to give the Steelers the edge, though. And it's funny, I'm kind of turning into a little bit of a hater, I think, because I picked even the Giants to win last week, but I was in full panic mode after that Ravens game, to be honest with you. So I'm still waiting for the Cowboys to really prove it. I think this could be a turning point game for them. I think that they come up short against the Steelers team. I think there's going to be a lot of offense on display. Give me a 31-28 win for the Steelers.
Wow. All right. Tell our listeners what they'll find when they go over and read the Dallas Cowboys work from you at alldlls.com today.
Yeah. We got some great stuff there. I got that Growing Pains feature on Tyler Guyton. If you want to read a little bit more about where he stacks up against fellow rookie offensive linemen, that could be something you check out. Dalvin Cook, why he's still in the practice squad and why he's not getting frustrated yet. And then Clarence has a good feature about Dak Prescott, the $60 million man, and why he may not want to be Superman yet, but it might be time to put the cape on.
Joseph, we first timer, great appearance, and hopefully these two teams only usually get together about every 4 years, but we'd love to have you back on again. We appreciate your time on this Friday. Enjoy your trip to Pittsburgh and enjoy the game, and thank you for being on with Dave and Alex on the Terrible Podcast.
Of course. Thanks, guys, for having me.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our special thanks to Joseph Hoyt, who covers the Cowboys for alldlls.com. Follow him on Twitter at Joe J. Hoyt, and thank him on Twitter as well for his time. Appreciate him taking time out of his busy schedule. I know he's going to make the trip into Pittsburgh here pretty soon. And great interview, great insight from Joseph, Dave.
Yeah, for a first timer, great. Really enjoyed that. And obviously the Steelers don't play the Cowboys very often, but we hope to have him on the short list of people to call and have back on the show the next time these two teams get together. And we appreciate his time. We hope everybody reaches out to him that's on Twitter and thanks him for his time.
Yeah, and thank you to those that do weekly. We see those and certainly acknowledge and appreciate you guys doing that out there and extending a hand to let them know that you heard them on the show. All right, Dave, let's preview this game ourselves. Pittsburgh, this Week 5 matchup. The Steelers 3-1, the Cowboys 2-2. As you mentioned, the first Sunday night game ever between Pittsburgh and Dallas. Only their second primetime game, the first since 1982. This historic rivalry, but all that matters is to here and now. Pittsburgh trying to avoid a losing streak. Dallas trying to stack some wins. They had the mini bye week as well, but they are banged up, missing some key pieces. No Parsons, no Lawrence, no Cooks, and we'll see whoever else is going to miss in this game. We'll start with that Dallas offense, though. They can be potent. They have some pillars set in stone in Dak Prescott, a quarterback, CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver. Everything else kind of feels like a question mark or work in progress. What's your evaluation take on this Dallas offense?
I think when you start from a personnel standpoint, they either use 11 or they have some combination of two backs in the backfield, whether it be a fullback or two running backs. That seems to be predominantly what they do, and you'll see them. They're not afraid. One of the things that stuck out is they're not afraid to use wide receivers in their running game as ball carriers. As I stated with Joseph when we talked to him, they have 4 runs of 10 yards or longer, and CeeDee Lamb has 3 of these for them so far. They have not been running the football effectively at all. We just mentioned a little while ago that they seem to be more of a pass first team on 1st and 10 type situations. They're obviously the Steelers need to be prepared to shut down CeeDee Lamb, especially when they're not going to have Brandon Cooks there available for this game. Dak can still make plays. He can still read things free snap. He can still get the ball out to the eligibles. I would expect them to try to attempt to run with some of these mid-zone runs in this game and try to establish something that way. I think they like the misdirection type stuff. I think one thing that stuck out is, especially if they have two running backs or a running back and a fullback in the backfield, is kind of that motion that works away from out of the backfield, and they'll either go away from that or throw maybe a screen to that. So I think you got to be cognizant of how they use that motion and where the football goes in that situation there. But I think it boils down to the passing game. Obviously got to stop the run, and I think the Steelers should have success in doing that. But you've got to limit the connection between Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. You got to tackle Lamb. One of the problems that I think that we've seen in these first couple games with Dallas, I think the Saints game specifically, is they missed a tackle on Lamb along the sideline, and he took that one to the house there for the Cowboys in that game. But I would put the onus on limiting Dak to CeeDee Lamb in this one, especially knowing that they're probably going to end up throwing the football and dropping back probably 45 to 50 times in this game as a whole. So I think that's where it starts there. And as usual is the case, you just got to make sure they don't gash you. We can't come out of this game thinking, oh man, can you believe the Steelers defense let the Cowboys run offense get on track?
Yeah, it has been really poor. I know they've been behind in some games. And of course, when you have Dak and Lamb, you want to throw the ball and utilize your best guys. But I mean, their longest run this year is 12 yards. I mean, their longest run from a running back is 10 yards. I mean, Dowdle and Zeke are averaging under 4 yards per carry, in some cases well under. They've just not been able to get that run game going, which is surprising because it's a big, strong offensive line. Like in terms of just getting off the bus kind of test, like it's just like a group of really impressive guys up front, but the results simply have not been there. Their inside zone, their duo, they've not made much hay. That's why they've used Lamb in some of those first and long situations. They had a 1st and 19 crack toss. They ran to him, got 10 yards or so against the Giants last week. So they'll do some actual, as you mentioned, some true designed runs, like as a running back, not even just jet stuff with CeeDee Lamb. So it's been interesting to kind of see his involvement in the run game. And we talked about, the one guy to watch where there might be a thorn in Pittsburgh's side is Hunter Lipke, that fullback, second-year guy, that third down work. He's kind of a use check as Joseph mentioned. So he's a guy that wears a lot of hats for them. Is good in pass protection. Got a 4th down carry last week when they went some tempo to convert. So watch out for number 40, Hunter Lipke.
They, at least one instance that I saw, they tried to run mesh rail to the running back. I think that was that against the Saints that they failed to connect on. I think another instance on a play down the field there. We've seen the Steelers get beat on this before too. Kind of that fake screen out to the left side where the eligibles, I think in this situation was a tight end and a wide receiver, act like they're coming off like they're going to block for a screen and then release up the field. And once again, we've seen the Steelers bite on those over the years. I think the Eagles beat them on that one time recently. What was it, last year? Those are things that the Steelers have had bugaboos against, and that shows up on the Dallas tape as well too. And Dak Prescott, once again, you're talking about an experienced guy that can read defenses and take advantage of things like that. So I would look out for maybe a mesh rail in this, and something where maybe a fake screen where they try to get a free guy off the field, down the field.
Yeah, I think in the past game, obviously it revolves around CeeDee Lamb, and him versus Porter is going to be a marquee matchup. They're going to probably line a lot 3-by-1, Lamb backside, isolate him, slants, let him just kind of go one-on-one and hopefully win his routes. But they'll move him around. So I think the first thing is finding CeeDee Lamb. He'll move different spots. Number 3, they ran Hoss Wide Juke against one of these last 2 games and tried to isolate him, got him for a first down that way. So there's team speed otherwise. They're missing Cooks, but a guy like Tolbert's fast, and I think even Flourney's got some speed as well. So I don't want to look at just CeeDee Lamb, but of course he's going to be their number one guy. They use horizontal spacing well, a lot of over the ball routes. They kind of throw as their run game on 1st and 10, a 5-yard over the ball route by their tight end, Jake Ferguson, is equivalent to their run game, which has been more successful, those short passes, than trying to run the ball with their running backs. So horizontal pass game, stopping Lamb, finding Lamb, how they're going to bracket probably some third down coverages, what kind of different looks and wrinkles will Pittsburgh employ to try to limit CeeDee Lamb. Pittsburgh generally does a really good job of taking away your best weapon offensively, but Lamb is in a different tier where it could be just hard to stop him the entire game.
Yeah, look, and you've got to make these, and Dak spreads the football around well to the eligibles and all like that. But if Dallas wins this game, the storyline should be, man, it went through guys like Jalen Tolbert or Florno, Ryan Flourney, who I think the fan base is really of theirs is really clamoring for him to get some more touches moving forward this week. You can't let it go through CeeDee Lamb. We can't be talking about 8 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown or 2 in this game.
Yeah, but every team wants to take away CeeDee Lamb, and it's all easier said than done. He's their TJ Watt, where you game plan around him, but he can still wreck your game plan because he's just that good. And I think Dallas smartly does a good job of helping get Lamb open and not just keeping him super static because they know that defenses want to turn their attention to him and take him away.
Yeah, he's going to have his catches in this game. They just can't. Mm-hmm. We got to be talking about 5 for 50 and not 8 for 125.
Yeah, well, you can't have the missed tackle that you talked about, right? Or once he has the ball in his hands, you got to get him down because he gets out in space. He's a dangerous man.
Agreed.
I thought Joseph also made a really good point about the offensive line, and Guyton, who's their rookie left tackle, was a right tackle at Oklahoma. Pittsburgh had interest in him coming out in the draft, and you wonder what their choice would have been had Troy Fautanu been off the board at number 20. Would they have gone with Graham Barton? Would they have gone with Guyton? Would they have gone somebody else? But he was a pretty raw, lean build, pretty tall, and Joseph talked about those rip moves working well against him. I talked about in that week 3 game against the Chargers against Watt and Alt that Watt would use that rip move because Alt was almost 6'9" and Watt could leverage him. I think Nick Herbig can do the exact same thing to Guyton in this one because Herbig is not a big guy.
He can get under him. I think this is something to watch in this game, actually, and hopefully Herbert and Herbig and that ankle is in good shape because I respect the Guyton speed and all like that. Herbig's quick off that edge, man, and he look, that ghost and that dip that he's developed and all. I mean, he's not. I don't think he needs to try to focus so much more on power rushes in this game as much as he does trying to dip him and get up underneath him and then get him ripped or just go right under him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you barely even have to dip the guy because he's so tall.
Right.
Like, just run under him. I mean, you're just little brother, it looks like, but it can work. And so I think Herbig could have a really big game in this one, assuming the ankle is not going to be too problematic. Because I think against a rookie like that, where they're going to work on a silent count. Dallas on the road is going to be super loud there, obviously. And so Pittsburgh could really get a good get off in this one. They can find one of those golden nuggets that TJ Watt talks about with the rookie center. Might be a little more predictable in how they work their silent count with a rookie trying to go on the road in a hostile environment. So I'm predicting Herbig's gonna have a really big game.
I think so too. And that's no disrespect to what Joseph told us about Guyton and all. But I think if Herbig's healthy, I think he could have a nice game.
And then we'll look at the other center as well. Cooper Beebe in the middle on Benton. They're like Pittsburgh or Dallas is like Pittsburgh, a couple of rookies up front, and it's a pretty young offensive line with Smith, their left guard, one second-year guy, I think. So Pittsburgh hopefully can have that advantage in their favor.
And look, I thought the Colts did a good job on TJ Watt. I'm not predicting that the Cowboys have as much success as the Colts did handling TJ Watt. And Terrence Steele's a college free agent, wasn't he?
A rookie, undrafted free agent.
Where did Terrence Steele come out at?
Texas Tech, I think. I think he might have been a UDFA. He was not a highly pedigree guy, but he's been in the league for several years. So I mean, he's established himself some, but he's not a super high quality right tackle. I don't think. All right, Dave, defensively here for Dallas, the question is, well, the answer really is you should be able to run on Dallas. The question is, can Pittsburgh do it? Now, to the Cowboys' credit, it almost has a Colts feel because Dallas was getting carved up against the run the first 3 weeks, but they shut down the Giants last week. Now, the Giants don't have the strongest rushing attack, but they had 24 carries and 26 yards, the way the Colts really kind of rallied and shut down the Bears' rushing attack, and that carried over into that Steelers loss. So, do you have confidence Pittsburgh can run the ball this week?
Here's the thing. You have to make, you look at that Ray. I can't help but, how many times did they run read option or some variants of that in the game between the Ravens and the Cowboys? And I think Jackson had, I think there was something like 9 instances of that. And there were a couple of them where it was just like Todd Monken was playing with his food, when it came to that. They had no answer for that. And obviously we're talking about a high pedigree athlete, a guy able to do that, Lamar Jackson. But Justin Fields is no slouch when it comes to that kind of stuff. I would make sure I get their respect early in the game with having to defend read option to just see how disciplined they are. And once again, they're not going to have Micah Parsons in this game. That's huge. I want to test them on that. I want them so scared that those edges make sure that Justin Fields is not going to get around the outside on them. And I want that Dallas defense to force the handoff in those type situations. Now, that seems like it would be obvious there. This, if you want to talk about a potential bounce back or a season best game for Naji Harris, if indeed that's the Dallas game plan, is to take away, make sure that they don't get beat outside by a mobile Justin Fields. The Steelers offense has to take advantage of that with runs up the middle with Naji Harris. They absolutely must. If Dallas is able to defend Fields from getting outside, and the Steelers are not able to run inside, and regardless of the back, whether it be Shamklin or let's say Jonathan Ward gets elevated, gets some carries in this. Obviously, Najee's going to be the main workhorse in this one. Shame on the Steelers because, and no disrespect to Kendricks or Overshawn, they ought to be able to run up the middle if the onus is on preventing Justin Fields from getting outside.
You had the tweet, and I want to know. I know you were asking the question, but you said, will Justin Fields hit 100 yards rushing? How likely do you think that could actually occur? Which it's not a crazy thought.
No, and look, I called for it last week. Need to see more of his legs, and we did. Mm-hmm. He just didn't break one. There should be an opportunity or for him to get loose in this game. They design quarterback runs have to be part of the game plan this week. And you could do that without the read option, obviously, and all like that. But I mean, you have to make that defense cognizant. And look, your passing game can be built off of rolling him out as well, too. And then if it's not there down the field, take off with it. There is a good opportunity that Justin Fields, not only the leading rusher for the Steelers in this game, but I would not be surprised if it's 100 in this game. There's a great opportunity for this, and quarterback runs in this game. There should be plenty of design runs, I think, in this game.
Yeah, I know Dallas has seen the read option a couple times recently against the Giants and especially Baltimore, as you mentioned, but you want to test it because they got some backups and they got some new people in. There's no Lawrence, no Parsons. They're the backups and younger guys like Nealand and, some of the relatively newer guys like Carl Lawson, the veteran to the NFL, and knows Pittsburgh well. But the point is, how well will those guys be able to adjust and play it? And listen, read options not easy to defend. How do you defend it? You can slant and scrape. You can surf technique. You can try to pack the box. You can do mesh charge. There's a bunch of different ways to attack it, but there aren't always easy solutions to be able to handle that consistently. So I think read option will be a big part of Pittsburgh's personality in this game. I think the big matchup individually to watch is Zach Frazier on Mazi Smith. We talked with Joseph about the really good performance that Smith had against the Giants, kind of his coming out party. Will that continue against Frazier? I think it'll be a really big determination of how well Pittsburgh can run the ball. He'd obviously get 4 hands on that guy, be physical. We got a big guy too, Linval Joseph. They got a couple of big guys up front. They're kind of more old school run stuffers than they are kind of gap shooters. So Pittsburgh has to show they can control the point of attack. I would use a lot of motion in terms of tight end trades and shifts and some gap schemes to gain a gap in this one. The Cowboys D-line does not respond to motion. They will not shift against motion. The linebacker shift, but the D-line does not. So can you be able to, shift the tight end over and then pull up, say, the left guard, whatever the case is, and gain a gap that way with the defensive line kind of out of position? I'd be looking to do that in this game. I think there's an opportunity for Pittsburgh to really get numbers and gain an advantage on Dallas.
Yeah, look, I would try to expand them as much as possible defensively to give yourself some lanes.
Yeah, and I think boot action can work well. I think Dallas, like I mentioned earlier, is an aggressive defense. They want to go for the ball. That can allow them to make plays, but it also gets them out of position, even on some simple boot action. There was a fake toss that I think, who was it? I think the Ravens ran, that Pittsburgh has in their playbook that they ran last week against the Colts, which can work just the same. So I think play action hopefully can be more effective in this game.
All right, something to watch for sure. But there is no excuse for the Steelers to come out of this game without having said they ran the football very effectively, it feels like.
And hopefully a quicker start. Pittsburgh only 10 points in the first quarter this year. Dallas has allowed 31 points in the first quarter this season. Now, some of that's skewed from the Saints game, but it's not just the Saints game. They've allowed decent points in the first quarter of a bunch of games this season. So Pittsburgh, hopefully at home, can start faster.
I agree.
Last thing I would note, too, is from a pass game standpoint, the pressure packages I saw against the Giants in particular, a lot of sim pressures on third down where the Cowboys are going to mug, put a guy in every single gap, and they're going to double barrel A gaps, and who's blitzing, who's backing off. It's a little tough to decipher. So I think Pittsburgh will have to be able to handle protection-wise some of those sim pressure looks pretty well.
All right. What about the Brandon Aubrey effect? In other words, that if they get in field goal range, it's almost like Justin Tucker. There's going to be 3 points on the board.
Yeah, you got two great kickers in this one. And if it's a close game, kickers may decide it. And he might be the best long-range kicker in football currently because Tucker has struggled. I mean, Aubrey, didn't he just hit 65 this year, I think?
Man, these kickers this year, it's like 50s or give-me's right now for a lot of it all. But yeah, I think you're right. I think he has hit 60 something, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think it was 65 in the regular season. He had 66 in the preseason. He's a guy that could legitimately, break Justin Tucker's record at some point. So, but Boswell, of course, has been fantastic. Should mention, by the way, Boswell, AFC Special Teams Player of the Month. So congratulations to Chris Boswell, the first Steeler to win the award since Boswell himself in 2015. And the guy before that was Jeff Reed in 2004. So that award does not happen often in Pittsburgh, but well-deserved for Boswell. 5 field goals of 50 plus. Long of 57. So yeah, the kickers in this one could certainly play an impact. Basically, once you get to the opponent's 40, you're in field goal range.
But look, if it was up to you right now, you'd choose the Cowboys coming out of this game with just 5 field goals, right?
Yeah, sign me up for their 15 points. I will take that chance for Pittsburgh's offense to surpass that. All right. And also special teams. I thought Josh Carney did a great job talking about their special teams, not only on Aubrey, but on Turpin, their return man. I mean, he's got a punt return touchdown this year. He is one of the most dangerous guys in football. Does he do kicks too? I assume he does kicks. I meant to check some of those things, but I thought Josh really did a good job to press upon that point about his threat in the return game.
All right.
He's got a punt return touchdown, and he does kicks. Only he's had 2 kick returns this year. I imagine no one wants to kick to that guy. But in the punt game, where sometimes you really can't avoid the return, you got to have good hang time. The Gunners have to win. That's going to be important. Turpin's a really cool story. I wanted to ask Joseph about it, just ran out of time. He was in one of those European leagues. I was studying the European leagues earlier this year because they adopted the new kickoff model from the USFL, I think it was, or XFL, wherever it came from originally. And I was going through the stats and I saw his name. I went, that guy played in the European leagues? He did. And then he went to one of the spring leagues and killed it there and came to Dallas and earned a roster spot. So Devante Turpin is a cool story and dangerous return guy.
All right, and it goes without saying, don't give Dak Prescott a short field to work on.
Yeah, play clean for Pittsburgh, clean up their own communication issues. That's feels like half the battle right there. So, all right, Dave, before we pick this game, let's make our picks for week number 5. And we both got by a crazy comeback from the Falcons. Kirk Cousins, 500 yards, big numbers, overtime victory there. I felt like Tampa Bay had this one all wrapped up and they couldn't close it out. We both picked Tampa Bay and we were both 0-1 to start the week.
Yeah, at least it was an exciting game when it comes to the Thursday night game. Atlanta at the end going for a 4th down. Felt like a hold my beer situation, and Tampa said, "Oh, wait a minute, you hold our beer here at the end," and they got the walk off. Boy, how quick was that final completion and lineup to get the spike? That had to be one of the fastest ones in history there. And then obviously made the field goal after kind of a weird delay of game, but Koo sent it to overtime, and then they got the walk off to a guy that you've talked a little bit about, Hodges, right?
Yeah, Daryl Hodges, the former Cleveland Brown. So kudos to him. I thought it was going to be picked or knocked, batted away or something. He makes the catch, turns upfield, turns on the Jets. So kudos to him. And yeah, it's a much different Falcons offense and Kirk Cousins than Pittsburgh saw in week 1.
Yeah, 2.5 felt good there. We were getting 2.5 there with Tampa Bay, and it was looking good until it wasn't. All right, let's start with Jets at the Vikings, the 4-0 Vikings. The Vikings at home laying 2 with their undefeated record on the line.
Oh man, give me the lines in this one, Dave.
No, Jets, Vikings.
Oh, you said Jets? I thought you said. I'm sorry, I had lines in the brain. I picked Jets last week. This offense, will they bounce back? I'll take the Jets.
I'll take the Jets +2. I think they hand the Vikings their first loss. The Browns go on the road against the Commanders. The Commanders 3.5-point home favorites against the Browns.
Yeah, that Commanders offense has been so impressive. Will they come back to earth at some point? I'll take the Commanders.
I'll take the Commanders lay to 3.5 as well, too. AFC North battle. Ravens go to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. The Ravens are 2.5-point road favorites against Cincy, who's trying to avoid going to 1-4 on the season.
It really feels like must win for that Bengals team. And the Ravens played some great football. They're coming together. They're running the ball extremely well. That defense is making plays. I'll go Baltimore.
I'll go Baltimore as well, too. They are getting it together here. And what should be a good game? Bills out on the road against the Texans. The Texans are laying 1 point at home against the Bills.
This one's definitely a challenge. Be a great game for sure. We'll go get to watch this once the Steelers are playing the night game. I'm still loving the Texans. Even though they're out without Joe Mixon, it appears. Give me Houston.
I'll take the Bills upsetting the Texans on the road. I'll take the +1. A game I know we'll both be tuned into. The Carolina Panthers on the road against the Chicago Bears. The Bears laying 4 points at home against the Panthers.
I'll say the Panthers cover.
I will as well, too. I think the Panthers win this one outright. I'll take the 4 points in that one. Indianapolis Colts going on the road to play the Jaguars, who are, I believe, winless, right? The Jaguars laying 2.5 points at home against the Colts.
Yeah, last winless team, and Doug Peterson, his time might be running out in Jacksonville. I'm not 100% sure if Richardson's going to play this week. I think he is, but I hadn't paid much attention. I'll take the Colts.
I'll take the Jaguars to get their first win and cover. I'll lay the 2.5 points. The Dolphins on the road, another game I'm sure we'll both be tuned into. Dolphins at Patriots. Patriots laying 1 point at home against the Dolphins.
Yeah, Dolphins just a mess with that pass game. The Patriots still have a stout defense. I'll go New England.
I'll go Dolphins. I'll go the other way. I had the Dolphins winning this. I'll take the point. Cardinals on the road against the 49ers. 49ers laying 7.5 points at home against the Cards.
Cardinals will look good. Kudos to them. I think maybe 49ers might win this thing, but Cardinals cover.
I'll go the other way. I'll take the 49ers to cover that 7.5 at home against the Cardinals. How about the Raiders on the road against the Broncos? Broncos laying 2.5 points at home. And obviously the Raiders won't have Devante Adams this week.
I think is he going to come back this week? Max Crosby, do we know a status update on him right now with that ankle injury? Not sure, but they still won in spite of all those missing pieces against the Browns. Broncos have looked better. Really good defense overall. I think Denver's defense wins out. Give me Denver.
I'll take the Raiders in an upset. I'm going to go opposite you here, or at the very least, I'll take the 2.5 points. The Giants on the road against the Seahawks. Seahawks lost to the Lions in a high-scoring game. Goff had a perfect game in that one. Seahawks laying 7 at home against the G-Men.
But not a perfect QB rating, which does kind of speak to the flaw in the QB rating metric system there. Malik Neighbors just ruled out with a concussion. Give me Seattle.
I'll take Seattle lay to 7 points there as well, too. Packers on the road against the Rams. The Packers 3-point road favorites against the Rams.
Yeah, I'll go Green Bay, Dave.
Give me Rams plus the points in this one. I'll take the 3 points there. Let's see, Monday night, Saints on the road against the Chiefs. Chiefs laying 5.5 points at home against the Saints.
Man, it's been a little tougher. Will the Saints bounce back and kind of show what the glimpses they were showing earlier this year? See the Saints at home?
No, Chiefs at home. Hosting the
right.
Saints, laying 5.5.
Yeah, that one's tough. Give me the Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs win this, but only by a field goal. So I'll take the Saints plus the 5.5 points. That rolls us all the way back to the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Right now, the Steelers are 2.5-point home favorites. What say you?
Yeah, should be a good game. I don't want to discount Dallas. Their run defense really tighten up. I know they're missing some pieces, but they're going to be ready to play in this one. I mean, I think Pittsburgh can have more success running the football. They're at home, prime time, generally sets up in their favor. I think they're going to clean things up. I think losses can refocus you to some degree. I don't want to say this team was overconfident or cocky. I really don't think that was the case, especially defensively. It's too veteran of a group to get too high in themselves 3 games in, but I do think losses can recenter teams overall. I think Pittsburgh will. I got Pittsburgh winning this one 27-23, a little higher scoring than their usual standard.
All right, I'll be very disappointed if the Steelers don't win this game. Everything sets up, I think, nicely for them. People will say, well, that's just enough of a reason to think that they'll lay an egg here. No, I don't think they will. I think they'll clean things up. I think they'll get the running game going. I think the Steelers win this one in a traditional score for you, Alex, 24-20. So I think that has both of us laying the 2.5 points in this one.
Yeah, let's hope so. I always like to play the game of if it goes the other way from expectations, what will be the reason? So if Dallas were to win, why would Dallas win, Dave?
Steelers turn the football over a couple of times, and CeeDee Lamb has a big game.
Yeah, I think it's Lamb having a big game, and I think the Cowboys' run defense is better than we think and tightens things up again and has a similar story to the Colts game. That'd be my prediction of why, and also probably Dallas hitting some big plays. Maybe from some other unusual sources, a la Tolbert or somebody like that, because there is good team speed for that Cowboys offense in the pass game.
All right, I'm ready to start talking about another win on Monday.
Me too. All right, Dave, let's get through some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, Deshaun Campbell writes in, what's up, guys? Lately, I've seen a lot of TV personalities and writers say things like Tomlin is holding this offense back and not allowing Arthur Smith to open up the playbook and Justin Fields, which is causing these slow starts. How much truth do you put into that? A. B, alongside running game, what would you like to see out of this offense that could jumpstart this offense earlier? Also, would love to see more back shoulder throws from Fields. He says, I feel Pickens feasted off those over his career, and get Austin the ball in space and let's see what he can do. Has Justin Fields, I don't know the answer to this. How has Justin Fields been throughout his career on back shoulders?
I really couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't know where to really even find that kind of stat.
I don't remember a lot of that sticking out is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but did he have a lot of guys to do that? Some bigger people in Chicago? I don't know if that was really ever. I mean, he had guys like Mooney and Moore, and those probably really aren't your ideal back shoulder type of guys. But I really couldn't tell you how he's done. It is interesting that we've heard a lot. I know Ryan Clark just kind of laid into Pittsburgh a little bit about slow starts and letting Fields open things up. I really haven't had that particular complaint overall. I think the offense has grown. It has opened up, week over week. I think we got a new OC, a new quarterback, and trying to learn about him and gain trust. You're going to build these things over time. And Arthur Smith is not exactly the wide open OC that's known for his crazy pass schemes and throw the ball all over the yard kind of thing. Like, you knew the guy you were hiring, you knew the team you were trying to be, your identity, your personality is run the ball, win time of possession, which Pittsburgh overall still has done. Listen, it's still a 3-1 team. Let's not lose sight of that based off of one loss. So I'm not, obviously you want to see this offense build, not be so static and those kinds of things, but I'm not freaking out the way that I think some people are.
Look, they've got to execute better on the offensive line, first and foremost, in the running game. Second, they are who we thought they would be, like you said, offensively, with what Arthur Smith is attempting to get done. They just do I think they need to get the ball to Calvin Austin more in space when applicable? Yeah. But what do you think about the term open up the playbook?
Again, it's one of those catch-all terms that can mean everything and nothing at the same time. I mean, it would mean, throwing more on first down. You did have the numbers on that. We talked about the context. Those numbers probably have to be viewed in and just being a little more aggressive and pass happy, I think, is the interpretation of what those comments are supposed to mean.
I would like to see them maybe throw a little bit more on first down. But if they just start running the football better, I think everything will kind of build off of that. But look, they don't. I think it's obvious they don't want Justin Fields to make a big mistake in the game, in the passing game.
Yeah, their MO is still to run the ball, limit possessions, control the clock, keep your defense fresh, which they have been doing a great job of the first 3 weeks. So it's hard to really complain about those results. It was a tough game against the Colts. They did not run the ball well. They have to be better against Dallas. Listen, Pittsburgh, to win, they have to run the ball. I mean, that has to be their MO. So, I'm all for working towards that. Now, there's different ways to do that. Doesn't mean you have to run head, 3 yards in a cloud of dust each game. I thought that was the case against the Colts, where I thought that run game was a little too barrel ahead and not as creative as it needed to be. But I still want to run the ball because this team has no choice. They must run the ball to win.
All right, Chris Lukehart back in our email machine saying, what do you think the real options for the Steelers at wide receiver are? He says, I've seen names like Hopkins, Cooper, and Devante Adams, but what about wide receivers from teams that will clearly be out of it? Guys like Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen. I don't know, the Buccaneers would or not. Where's Keenan Allen at now? Chicago. Now, he says Christian Kirk, Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, or Waddle. He says, I think some of the teams with terrible records would be willing to unload someone if the price is right. He says, all I know is we need a real number two. Look, they just, the deals they signed, Miami signed Hill and Waddle to. Are they really going to jump ship from those deals? all that money invested? I would be absolutely, and look, I've been shocked before, but I would be stunned if the Dolphins traded Hill or Waddle. Wouldn't you?
I would. They're not in freak out mode right now. Hopefully Tua comes back once he's eligible to come off of IR. That seems to be the plan. I don't want to speak for them, and it's obviously a dicey, touchy situation there. But yeah, I don't think the Dolphins are packing it in right now.
And I don't think Keenan Allen's going anywhere from the Bears. Christian Kirk, does Christian Kirk rev up your motor any?
I mean, it would make sense. I mean, he's got a pretty big contract too, I think. But from a talent standpoint, there's something there, and the Jaguars certainly will be eventual sellers. I do think, and listen, in terms of these sellers, that's not going to happen for a couple more weeks until teams really kind of know if they're in or out of this thing. No one's really counting themselves out right now, except for maybe Jacksonville. But I think Hopkins makes a lot of sense. The pedigree guy, Mike Tomlin's talked him up quite a bit. I don't know if I would love it because he's such a contested catch guy and he's kind of losing some of that luster he had early in his career. I'd kind of like somebody that can get more separation, but obviously it'd be an upgrade for this team. I could certainly see the attraction there for Pittsburgh to want him and for Tennessee to sell him, assuming their season does not get super on track.
And he's a guy that wouldn't take a lot to wrestle away from them either.
Super day 3 pick. It's going to be real cheap too. What's his contract situation like? Is he past this year? I don't even know what his
let's look real quick with his... I
mean, he's older, he's concerns with his knees, and he's playing through like an MCL issue, but that's a guy you can get really cheap. Now his deal voids after this year, so he's got a higher base salary. That's probably like a deadline thing to reduce the amount of money you got to take on, but that's a guy that makes a lot of sense in terms of who I could see them go after.
Right. And I would doubt Cooper would be dealt in division, wouldn't you?
Amari Cooper, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if that does Cleveland want to deal Amari Cooper. Like, he's not had a great year, but they were looking to deal him in the Ayuk situation. But I mean, I think they're not going to do that to Pittsburgh.
All right, Robert Cole writes in. Let's see what he has to say. Love the show. Let's see. Love the show. Been following since the beginning. I'm a Pittsburgh native tuning in from Los Angeles. I have to agree to disagree with the idea that the Steelers should go after these big name elite wide receivers that want out of their current city's contracts. They should focus on the draft and develop receivers. While there is no doubt that this team needs a solid number 2, is Devante Adams really a good fit? He writes. Let's see. What else does he have here? I think Devante Adams is a good fit for anywhere right now, even at his age. I think you still get the rest of this season out of him and at least next season out of him. He says if a wide receiver is not happy in one place, odds are high that he will not be happy in another place, and is highly likely will become a future problem. Also, with the conservative way our offense is designed, would he even get enough catches, and will there be enough balls to distribute to keep him happy and satisfied? He says, I like Deontay Johnson, but it became a diva too. We have done a great job of getting rid of bad injury. Also, how long would Devante take to work into the offense? He says the Steelers should only consider players that want to be in black and gold, only want to be in black and gold. They should maintain the philosophy of not having bright, shiny object syndrome every time a good wide receiver hits the market. What are your thoughts? And also he adds on here, tell Alex to put down college football and grab the new Madden already.
Oh, I don't know. Is the new Madden good? It's got a bad reputation right now, so I'll look into it some more. Yeah,
do you view Devante as a potential problem child? In other words, he's wanting out of Vegas now. Could we get a situation where middle of next year, if the Steelers trade for him, that they've got a guy that's saying, get me out of here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know his story too much. I haven't heard of him being a big problem. I mean, I don't even know exactly why he wants out right now. I mean, I don't know if it's because of the Antonio Pierce thing, the social media. I don't think that's the catalyst, but he's not known as like the super diva. All receivers have some sort of diva in them. But my answer to that short answer would be that I'm willing to take that chance of him becoming a problem for the chance to win right now and to help this team win. So I'm willing to roll that dice.
Everybody wants a number 2 wide receiver, but then they get specific of what they want. With it. And it doesn't happen like that. And I think he would be a good fit. And I'm with Alex. I mean, and I've never viewed him as a high baggage type of guy, period. Anyway, and Mike Tomlin's dealt with a lot worse. I think he'd be able to accommodate him. And look, Devante would have to want to come here and work his contract out on top of it. So that would be a sign that I think that he would want to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers by doing just that. So, if they have an opportunity to get Devante Adams, I think they should go after Devante Adams.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for it because I want this team to win. This offense clearly is missing a number 2 receiver. No one's going to emerge as that clear-cut number 2 receiver this year on this roster. Not going to happen. Ruben Wilson's missed too much time. Maybe he gets back in the fold to some degree, but he's not going to end the year with 50 catches. So I want to do everything possible to help this pass game win.
All right, Mario Brunell writes in, offensive philosophy shift. So, gents, based on the O-line injury situation, the epic slow feet of Naji Harris, and injury issues with our other running backs, it seems Coach Tomlin needs to be realistic about our offensive capabilities going forward. We will not have a dominant run game this year, he writes. Therefore, the run-heavy game plans need to change. Fields moved the ball well with quick passes to multiple targets while mixing in his scrambles. We have 3 good tight ends, running backs who catch the ball well, and speedy wide receivers. I think that's the way to go. Plus, if we get a guy like Devante Adams, that would help even more. We just can't keep trying to play bully ball with so many bullies unavailable. Finally, if Fields gets hurt, Russ Wilson should be able to duplicate those same game plans to a decent degree. He wants our thoughts on that. Look, once again, this goes back to what the offensive philosophy is and your offensive coordinator. As much as injured as this offensive line has been to this point, and yeah, you just lost James Daniels, but you are getting Isaac Seumalo back. my take heading into this week is you still have an offensive line I think you can work with, an offensive line that specifically that you can work with to get the ground game going, especially if you mix in plenty of those quarterback design runs and take advantage of the feet of Justin Fields. And on top of it, you talk about if they get a guy like Devante Adams, but what if they don't? Okay. Wide receivers not named George Pickens in this offense are going to leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah, if you put up this group of skill guys, we'll even include the tight ends. You put up the top 5 names. Where would you rank them across the NFL? They're probably going to be in that bottom third tier. I don't know exactly where you want to put them, but they're not going to be one of the greatest collection of skill group players overall. So I'm with you. I think a collection of Dan Moore at left tackle, Isaac Seumalo at left guard, Zach Frazier at center, Mason McCormick at right guard, and Broderick Jones at right tackle. That is a group that can run the football, that needs to be able to run the football. Maybe not at the highest clip in the NFL, maybe not the best run blocking offensive line, but at a serviceable clip to do what this offense needs to do. So I'm not giving up on the run. I think it is really important to how Pittsburgh wins. I think the first 3 games of the year showed that and proved that. Fields himself can be used more as a runner, and that probably has to be leaned on and looked at to help spark this run game, especially with the running back injuries they have behind Naji Harris. You might have to add some layers to it, but they have to run the ball. Does that mean that every single game you run the ball 40 times? No, there may be times where based on game plan and circumstance where you're going to throw the ball a bit more. I think the Chargers game was a little bit of an example of that in some respect early on in the first half. So it's not a one-prong approach only, but overall, Pittsburgh's not going to win on the whole if they don't run the football. And so they have to get that thing going.
I agreed. They got to figure it out. And this is a good week against the Cowboys defense to try to figure it out. We'll see if they're able to do that. One other final note before we get out of here. Someone had asked about designated to return on the last show. And the all-important first transaction sheet of week 5 came out a couple of days. In fact, I think Wednesday night there. And this is the first one, obviously, after the first 4 weeks where players had to sit out those 4 games there. Based on the way the NFL sheet reads, it appears as though the designated to return label must be assigned once a 21-day window from IR begins. The sheet was littered with those, and even a few of those that had went on IR after week 1 officially kind of got, in other words, after the cut down date, but prior to the first game taking place. I think you pointed out a few of those, Alex, within that. So it appears as though that once a team opens up a 21-day window on a player, like we can't use Moon as an example because he was already had the designated return tag on him. But around the league, it appears as though for guys that were not sent to IR, ahead of the week 1 starting as far as the 53-man roster cut down, it appears as though that teams moving forward, when they open up a 21-day window, they must apply the designated to return tag. So therefore, if you open up the window on a guy and apply the designated to return tag, and for whatever reason that guy re-injures himself or does not get activated back to the 53-man roster within the 21-day window, then you essentially lose that tag.
Okay, good to know. And yeah, you get 8 of those in the regular season. So they've already used 2 with Moon, who's officially back, and Cook. He was designated to return. He's not practicing yet, but they've already put that label on him. So they have 6 more remaining. So if they open up the window on, just like hypothetically, Logan Lee next week, he'll officially start counting as that designated to return label.
Right. Regardless of if he gets injured or doesn't make it back to the 53.
Right. So good clarification there.
All right. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, I know Ben's on the McAfee show. It already been broadcast by the time people listen to this, but we'll hear what Ben has to say and come back on. It'll be a weary Monday for us. Sunday night games are always a little tough, but we'll be back Monday, talk about this Cowboys game.
Yeah, we'll have to sleep fast Sunday night. Okay, in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. We've got great scouting reports up on the Cowboys up on the site by Alex and the crew. Well worth your time to read to kind of coincide with what we talked about today on the podcast. Hope you get by the site the rest of the weekend. We'll keep you up to date on transactions, news, anything. You normally have about 50 posts a day up on the site, so please swing by the site if you're not already doing so. So in the meantime, until Monday morning, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.